Welcome to the Dreaded Terror Horror Show with your host, the Dreaded One.
And I'm Terrible. Today we'll be reviewing Final Girls,
a feel-good mother-daughter slasher horror.
We'll also be discussing SCP-096 and Anime Akira.
There will be spoilers for today's spotlighted pieces. You've been warned. Let's begin.
Please slash and spike the like and subscribe.
Enjoy. First up, we'll review film Final Girls, not to be confused with Final Girl, practically the same name, different film entirely, except released November 5th, 2015, same year, starring Alexander Ludwig, the same star. It's directed by Todd Strauss-Schulzen and written by partners M.A. Fortin and Joshua John Miller. He be Kid Homer from 1987's horror classic Near Dark. Fun fact, he's kid brother to 1987's Lost Boys star Jason Patric. Jason Patric was born John Anthony Miller III. But Dreaded One, why are you using his government name? To invoke his lineage, of course. Their late father is John Anthony Miller Jr., better known as Jason Miller, the troubled priest from another horror classic, The Exorcist. Joshua Miller's mother, Sue Bernard, starred and featured in notable horror movies such as The Killing Kind and Necromancy. Spoiler warning. For maximum viewing pleasure, please watch the movie before viewing this video. You can watch it on Hulu. That's what we did. The movie begins with Max and mother Nancy leaving a job interview she knows she didn't get. Nancy used to be in B-rated horrors, but now finds difficulty finding work. The opening exchange between mother and daughter was only a few minutes, yet in that time, you felt you knew them. I really liked them and I wanted everything to work. And then The Blind Side. They get in a terrible accident and Nancy, the mother, doesn't make it. Fast forward 3 years later, Max is still mourning her mother when she's persuaded by friend Duncan to attend a viewing of her mother's old slasher horror movie, Camp Bloodbath. While at the theater, it somehow catches on fire because teenagers. Then somehow through Adam Divine intervention, they find a real machete on the ground because crazy people. They use it to slash through the movie screen and make their way into the second dimension. They soon realize that they're stuck in the loop of the Camp Bloodbath film, so they decide to ride the movie out and to team up with the NCPs of the movie Camp Bloodbath.
During an awkward exchange, Adam's character throws his own van keys away. I think this was the movie Dimension's way of keeping them on code. After basking in Kurt's douchery, they go looking for the keys, and this is when they encounter Slasher Billy, ready to do a by-the-book, cot-blocking purity kill. Here's where Duncan gets cocky and decides to test Billy, but gets all hacked up.
They eventually escape and explain to the movie characters that they really aren't alive, and in turn the NCPs tell them the story of how Billy Murphy transformed into a monster after being locked in an outhouse with firecrackers. They devise a plan using Tina, trust me, we'll get to Tina, to lure the slasher out, to kill him once and for all. But it fails miserably because the only way to kill him is for all the girls except for the final girl to die. To wrap up, of course, Max kills Billy and turns out everyone lived somehow. PG-13. They set up the sequel well in the hospital, a nod to Halloween 2, I suspect, but it never happened, unfortunately. After watching this movie and researching the film, I came away thinking, is Max really Joshua John Miller? And is Nancy really his father, John Miller? I could be way off here, but I felt it like a meal made with love. Good film.
great acting set the tone for the movie. They wanted our heart invested, but they knew they needed to bring the fun, and they did so early and often.
Pace. Liked it, but favorite characters got killed off too quick.
Gore and effect. PG-13, what do you expect? But still not bad.
Coolness factor. Self-aware horror tropes. No sex or die, purity kills. Slow motion monster chase scenes. The flashback effects. And the absolute unnegotiable requirements for the final girl was nostalgically fun. This is 80s slasher horror bread and butter.
Preferential treatment. Final girl got the pref, but it's expected if not required here.
Proper use of the jump scare. They didn't really use it, and if you can't do it right, don't do it at all. So good.
Kill creativity. There are no Adam Green, but tripping face first into a bear trap you helped set was a first. It could only have happened to Tina. Oh, Tina.
Monster power rating. Discount Jason Voorhees.
Survivability. Theoretically, you could live in this forever, but why would you want to? They knew how the film went. Why didn't they try a coordinated jumping?
Man, let's jump. Sit your ass down.
Phonometer. It deserves a solid A. Gave love to 80s horror, the greatest decade ever, and the greatest genre ever as well.
Overall rating. It was shot tight but with great care. I would have loved more Adam Devine and Thomas Middleditch. The comic relief of Middleditch was missed in the second act. Killed off way too soon in my book. All in all, they did an amazing job all around. So where's the sequel, guys? Favorite scene? The van would have to be. Max seeing her mom, but knowing it's not actually her mom, was well portrayed. Thaisa Farmiga's subtle acting painted a brilliant picture of her inner conflict. They set the scene up well. Interesting aspects. The mother and daughter dynamic I loved. They didn't crowbar their relationship into the movie. The acting, writing, and direction gave you this seamlessly and beautifully. If you're looking for a movie to make you laugh and cry, this is it. Here's an Easter egg. On Nancy's resume, there was a Jenny Kravitz. The writer went to the same high school as musician Lenny Kravitz. Similar films. Final Girl, but not really.
Loose ends. I told you we'd get back to Tina earlier, didn't I? Angela Trimber, didn't want to be typecast as a giga-slut, so she turned to more conventional roles in films such as I Know Jake Gyllenhaal's Going to F My Girlfriend, along with notable others like Reno 911, as a stripper, Learning to Score, Loaded, Secret Girlfriend, Dirty Backs, Freak Dance, The Back Room.
Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #1. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #2. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #3. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #4. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #5. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #6. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #7. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #8. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #9. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #10. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #11. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #12. Shout out to my homegirl Pinky. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #13. Fatties, Rhymes, and Downs #14. Chippy D, Montana Fishburne.
Honkers. How to Cheat on Your Wife. Californication. I hear she was David Duchovny's best platonic friend.
Gateman 1. Gateman 2. Gateman 3. Gateman 4.
F you, mistletoe. Beef.
Okay, where's the beef?
Alone together. I love you both. Lonely and horny. Laid in America. I know you from somewhere. It happened in LA. XX Strangers, Sex on Planet Weird, Pickle and Peanuts, The Feels Like Someone's Missing, Horse Girl.
White girls get busy.
This filmography would make Brian Pumper blush. Sequels or prequels. This was most disappointing. They set it up so well too at the end. Lessons. If you slash a movie projector and it takes you into a never-ending film loop, you undoubtedly have always been part of a simulation. Alright folks, it's Terra time, where we decide the fate of characters using tarots and such. The lucky one, that would have to be Chris, played by Alexander Ludwig. He would be the King of Wands, well, because he had the plan, and that's what the King of Wands is known for, having a plan. And he also gets the Hermit, because he invoked the Hermetes in the beginning of the movie, where he discussed or talked about them going to the underworld and how they would have to keep going or they would be stuck there. Kind of like the situation they ended up in the story. And Hermetes is basically short for the Hermit, and we all know this, I think. Maybe. I don't really know.
So, what they really saying is, Anaconda malt liquor gives you little. What is another word for Richard?
The badass, of course, was Max, who was played by Thaisa Farmiga. She pulls the three swords through the heart, and it's a signal of heartbreak and grief. The movie takes place exactly 3 years after her mother's tragedy. She also pulls the strength card. This card is meant to display quiet strength through patience and influence over others to achieve a goal. She never gave an order in this movie, yet everyone around her displayed some level of altruism so that she could summon the strength to slay the generic beast. The funny guy, of course, is Kurt, played by Adam Devine. He was the fool, enough said. I like Duncan, played by Thomas Middleditch. He was the magician of the story. The magician is a powerful figure that understands with the understanding of the 4 minor arcana, which can be represented in the movie as the fourth wall being broken within the movie. His knowledge of the Camp Bloodbath movie made him mage-like for a time. However, the Wheels of Fortune did not grace him favorably. The Wheels of Fortune represent in the movie the cycle within the movie that they're trapped within. Too bad for Duncan, the cycle is an unpredictable one. Duncan realized this fact too late and killed off way too early. I also liked Vicky, played by Nina Dobrev. She pulls the Judgment card. This card usually indicates an unfulfilled life. This is brought to life by Vicky's need to seem happy with another guy in front of her ex Chris, despite the fact that she ditched him to hang out with her friends. Her jealousy towards Max was another indicator that she's missing something. Vicky's mean girl attitude gradually softened throughout the movie. Knowing she was probably gonna die allowed her to reflect inwardly on herself and her treatment of her friends. This is a key component to the Judgment card. Ironically, she was judged in real life for those tig-o bitties.
White girls get busy.
I loved Gertie, played by Alia Shawkat. She pulls the Queen of Swords card. Gertie has to be my favorite character. She was funny, adorable, and she gave it as good as she can take it. And she was always there for her friends. My goody two-shoes would be Blake. He pulls the 80s Urkel card, played by Tori N. Thompson. I got nothing else. I also like Nancy, played by Malin Ackerman. She pulls the Temperance card. Temperance is an angelic figure with a foot in water and the other on dry land, denoting imagination and reality. The character of Nancy died, making her comparable to an angel. Plus, she lives in the movie as an imagination. Yet, she was made real within the movie. I disliked Billy Murphy. Had nothing to do with Daniel Norris. He's a top-notch stunt guy. Kane Hodder would be proud. I just hated the look. But maybe they were just going for generic. It was deliberately parodying a canned slasher film. So why not have a canned slasher? Let's give it a pass. He pulls the death card, of course, which doesn't necessarily mean the end, but a new beginning. Billy Murphy had a 0 kill accuracy in this movie. Everybody got a new beginning. Still no new beginning for the sequel though. The gruesome one in this movie would have to be Tina, played by Angela Trimber. Who are we kidding? Tina is the star. She pulls the star in this movie. The most enjoyable person in this movie. And that's saying something because it was a lot of fun. She was met with a horrible fate. Hopefully now she's at peace.
White girls get busy.
We will now have a seance with the ill-fated. Are there any spirits with us?
I said yes.
What's your name? Hunky Hiker?
Hunky Hiker.
Do you remember what happened?
I was in search of Virginia cherry bushes when I came across Mimi. Sweet Mimi.
Do you know why we summoned you?
Not exactly.
Do you have any regrets?
Not picking Mimi's melons.
Do you have a last wish?
That I can taste her strawberries.
Do you have any last words?
I wish I got that puss. Please. Now it's time for Return of the Smack with SCP, manga, anime, and comics, that is, where we review the dopest dark comics and Asian horror. Today's joint is Akira, written by Katsuhiro Otomo and Izo Hashimoto. It's directed by Katsuhiro Otomo as well, and it's made in 1988. Otomo's memories might be one that we feature soon on the show. It's a sci-fi anime that has some interesting plots. Izo Hashimoto, however, I was already a fan of from his work in the manga Channels. It follows a kid named Ryu Narushima, who killed his parents for seemingly no apparent reason, hence sent to jail, where he begins his gradual transformation into a psychotic fighting machine. The beautiful thing about this piece is even though this guy did some disgusting and vile things, I somehow found myself seeing where he came from. The dude Hashimoto is sick with it. Now to Akira. To summarize, in Neo-Tokyo, the government uses a biker gang member in a psychic experiment. Only a badass kid, his gang, and psychic toddlers can hope to stop him. Interesting aspects of Akira. Kid psychics. It's better that they have powers as kids. They didn't go into whether it's due to the adult's brain being too mature or traumatized to handle it, but it's mentioned by Chris Matthews' toddler that big people aren't meant to have this power. So it reminds me of Chronicles, which in retrospect seems to have drawn inspiration from Akira, because the psychology of Andrew in Chronicles and Tetsuo in Akira seem very similar. I don't know this to be true, but in Chronicles, you have 3 friends. 2 of them are very well developed, great kids. But the third, Andrew, because of abuse and feelings of inadequacy, he's driven to turn on his friends and the world in general. The only problem is that the incel has OP telekinetic powers. Most people aren't meant to have power. Remember that. Origins of power. The movie revolves around the idea of the origins of energy and apotheosis, becoming a god. Tetsuo and Akira have the ability to control mass and manipulate energy. Unlike the other children who seem to be limited to controlling mass telekinetically using energy, Tetsuo started growing body parts and increasing size without consumption of energy. This means he's converted pure energy into mass, which is theoretically possible, but far more difficult to achieve. Think of it this way: E equals MC squared in reverse. In the anime Scribe, they played around with this idea. They had superpowered humans called alters that can convert mass around them into energy or altered mass. It's a pretty cool concept, but I found the anime so-so. Back to Akira. Our last interesting aspect is Shotaro Kaneda, our main protagonist. He was so dope. I love his bike, I love his attitude, and I love the fact that he didn't give a Satoshi. He's the leader of a biker gang with a heart of gold. All throughout the movie, you see Kaneda throw caution to the wind to help his friends, like he doesn't care. But the beauty of Kaneda's character is that he only does these courageous things because he cares the most. James Allen said it the best: the greatest power in the universe is the universal power of love. It's the strongest power, and it's why Kaneda was invincible. This movie to me gets a usual rating of 8. Why? It's because it holds up over time, and the cinematic art is a classic. If I hear Neo Tokyo, I can only think of Akira. You can watch this movie on Hulu. That's where we watched it. It's time to secure, contain, and protect your sacks, Berta. What is the SCP Foundation? Well, apologies to the SCP OGs, but to the uninitiated, they're a collection of tales, reports detailing well-written anomalies. Some might call this genre of horror dry, but that's kind of part of its appeal, not to mention that it's twisted and interesting. Today's author is Dr. Dan, writer of SCP-096, The Shy Guy. If you're like me, you're tired of the same old movie plots and ideas, so discovering the SCP was like discovering your first orgasm. This fictional organization dedicated to the securement, containment, and protection of all manner of monsters, deities, Lovecraftian type stuff. Well, this project was all started back in 2008 by independent writers. The SCP Foundation is up to Series 7, which is about 7,000 SCPs in containment. It is said that SCP-001 is the creator and origin of all SCPs, but there are currently up to 37 001 proposals, and no one really knows which one is the real deal. Today we will discuss SCP-096, The Shy Guy. 096, The Shy Guy, is a humanoid with no hair or pigment, standing at about 2.8 meters or 8 feet tall, with ridiculous Randy Moss-like wingspan at 1.5 meters or 5 feet an arm. He has little muscle mass with a skeletal structure that is virtually indestructible, with a healing factor, in fact, that would make Wolverine blush. His jaws can stretch to 4 times that of a normal human's. Although his level of sapience is not fully understood, he is docile and he's constantly crouching in a fetal position, covering his face and weeping gibberish. That is until you look at his face, in which case he will break containment and you will be sorry. Read about this SCP on the SCP Wiki site, best YouTube SCP videos for highlighting SCP-096. You can find maybe the Volgun. The Volgun does a very good job of presenting SCP in its original form and with high quality production. SCP Explained does the SCP, but in an alternative way, or gives you an alternative perspective on the SCP. SCP Exploration is not necessarily my favorite channel for SCPs, but does a great job in terms of the backstory and research, and I highly enjoy a lot of the videos that they do. It's just not my favorite. But my favorite might be, well, not my favorite by far, is SCP Exploration series in general, not just for 096, but the way they Exploration series breaks down each of the SCPs and goes on and breaks down not just the origin, but maybe the thoughts behind it and different aspects that you might not even thought of. I really like it. Mr. Clay made a dope short movie about 096 that I highly recommend as well. You will have a lot of fun with that one. I've watched it several times. These sites and videos will be in the show notes below. His trigger might be his creepiest characteristic. You can in no way look at his face. Even if you saw his tiny pixelated face in the background of an 8x10, you're dead. Meaning, you don't even need to know you saw him for him to kill you. His persistence is an It Follows demon monster type persistence. To imagine being chased by 096 fills me with that type of dread. Unescapable dread. The way the Milky Way dreads Andromeda type dread. Homie has an impressive 100% kill rate, with documented kills from the Marianas Trench and the Moon. And it's that insane Michael Jordan level of work ethic that makes 096, the Shy Guy, one of the SCP Foundation's crown jewels. The vagueness of his origins are also part of his mystique. No one truly knows where 096 came from, but one popular theory floating around here is that he was tortured endlessly by SCP-1529. This story seems to be the most popular story or explanation for his abilities and murderous behavior. Let's discuss in the comments below.
Hope you like the fun and mayhem. In our next episode, we'll be reviewing Scanners, written and directed by David Cronenberg, starring Michael Ironside, Jennifer O'Neill, and Stephen Lack. Fun fact, during filming, Stephen Lack was possessed by a demon who was jealous of his inherent acting abilities.
We'll have some more smack talk with horror SCPs, mangas, animes, and comic reviews. Our manga will be one of my all-time favorites, Séance by Hiroya Oku. And don't forget, we geek out on SCPs around here, so plan to secure, contain, and protect your sack with SCP-3001, Red Reality. A scientist finds himself in a null dimension where his only companion is a red dot. It's way, way cooler than it sounds.
You can find our social media links in the show notes. Please slash and spike the like and subscribe to get notified of the next episode and top 13 lists. Have a say in the upcoming show topics and help grow the community by commenting below. It's been fun.
Later, guys.